Anyway, ask this guy. I think he's one of the world authorities on ketosis. All he does is study ketones in his lab in Florida. And I just heard the most recent interview with him. He said they want to know what are the druggable pathways of the ketogenic diet. Who do you think they are?
Pharmaceutical company.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Everyone's making
And
Make money out of it.
He says, I can tell you this firsthand. This is direct words, and I can tell you where to listen to him. He says, I can tell you firsthand because I've been and spoken to them. Like, he's like that one of the number one. There's a few world authorities on this subject because that's all they do. They have labs set up, and he says our whole lab is set up around the ketogenic diet. He says they can see, the drug companies can now see how effective the ketogenic diet and ketones are in treating just about any. They can't get a drug to do all the things that a ketogenic diet does. But they can't see how you can get. Did I bring him today? I meant to show you. But there's actually synthetic ketones on the market now. I've got some here today. I'll get them in a minute. And there's about it's only happened in the last 12 months or 18 months in the States. They can actually synthetically make ketones. Instead of go through this process, they can just make these and you can straight into your blood. We were talking about the other day, I've stayed away from them for different reasons. This guy just says he thinks they're okay. I heard another guy who's been doing this for 37 years, Richard Beach. All he's been doing is study ketones, and he said I wouldn't touch them. So that was good enough for me. So they might be okay, but all I want to say with that is that this is real and this is so effective, and the drug companies want to know about it. But if it's that good, well, we can just go and do it. Okay. We could get into the whole why it's good, but we've got a bit more stuff I want to cover today, and I know time is getting on, so I don't want to keep you guys here all day. So basically, I'll give you a few more details, but fasting, how do you do it? Well, you stop eating. You can't work that out. See rule number 1. When should you do it? Anytime. You can also see rule number 1. How long? As long as you like. But that one you can see rule number 2. Okay, and that's not to be cheeky, that's just to try and again, look, don't make this stuff hard. And you can read a bit about, so I try to sum it up, but look at fasting and ketones as a unit that goes together. This is just a bit more about understanding how it works, that it's a survival mechanism, and it's served us well for probably hundreds of years. But there's a bit of a caveat in there too. Like if you look at this line here, I'll just read it. Accepting that we need to fast on a regular basis as a means to fine-tune, optimize and ensure the general working of our body will only happen by experience and further understanding as time goes on. This is where I'm at today. I think we're just talking about fasting of get your fat metabolism going, kickstart it, right? But I think there's so many benefits to it. Longevity. Did anybody see SBS the other night? ABC.
Catalyst.
The Catalyst,
Yes.
Yeah. And actually that guy, Walter Longo, is he's one of the ones that are really up on it. And I don't even think he said, we talked about the other day, I don't think he even said half of what he thought in that episode. Because he knows everything about ketones. I've listened to interviews with him. So it's happening, and ketones they just go together. Ketosis happens when you fast, and that's part of the benefit of fasting. But look, part of the improvement that takes place within the body has to do with the fact that weak and sickly cells gets eliminated. Simply put, when resources are limited within the body, it becomes survival of the fittest, and the strongest cells survive. That should be.
So that's when they talk about the dying of cells that
Yes.
you don't need, and that's why it's healthy for people with cancer or any other kind of
That's a
serious
whole,
illness.
but actually from studying what they've done with cancer patients is where I've learned a lot of put this stuff together, how it actually works, and getting deep into the fasting. So this is the other thing, and this is why there's The longest guy who fasted, fasted for 382 days, was a Scottish guy back in the day.
382.
Yes, and he was like 400 and some pounds. So, but it just goes to show. See what we think of. Well, and this is why I started being calmer about it. Is that, well, okay, I can see how we talk about salt. It's a good example. Okay, you need salt because obviously you can live off energy, but you need your minerals and you need your vitamins and this and that. Well, what happens when you fast and a cell dies? You recycle that cell, and there's proteins, there's minerals, there's everything in the machinery of that cell, so to speak. So there's a lot of your nutrients. Yeah, you break down a fat cell, it's going to release the fat. But if you break down the cell itself, there'll be like actual what do you call machinery. You heard about like the nucleus and that sort of thing. So there's actually all those things get recycled and reused. So there's a big thing about taking salt because you do excrete a lot of salt, sodium especially. But I even talked about Dominique D'Agostino, I talked about the other day. And look, all they can see is that you take it because you do start excreting more initially. Then your body finds its balance and then you're okay. I've never taken it, but it's not to say that it might not be a transient thing because you could excrete so quick that you can't, that your body's not adjusting. But honestly, I haven't done it personally, and I've any issues. So, but it's not to say that it wouldn't be a good idea. So,
unless you've got really high blood pressure, you might not want to do it.
If you have issues,
otherwise.
But I was just what I'm trying to get across with the fasting is like people say it's dangerous, this and that. Well, it's an inbuilt mechanism we're meant to handle, and it will switch on.
Well, there's Tibetan monks that have fasted for days and days and months and months and months, and that's like a couple of thousand years ago, and they didn't.
Again, it's well tested, like the real food diet. Like we've been. Like I mean, this is probably the last 100 years is the only time we've had abundance of food. Otherwise, we probably would have been doing what I'm doing now, normally.
And isn't the irony that it's closer to killing us since they started producing massive amounts of food and making it quite easily accessible, not making us work for it. Yeah.
But it's so many things that are messed up. We can't really. We can't sit down and say that. But it's you mess one thing up, you mess everything up, and it has a cascade. But if we understand how the mechanism works, I think we got a shot at doing it, and it's easy. So that's more or less this page for you to refer back to a little bit, or what is it and how does it work, in my words. But also, to get a bit more into ketones, is that ketones are very clean burning fuel. This is just one point I can make about ketones. We can talk about a myriad of others. But this is what you can measure in a lab. Okay, so they're very clean burning fuel, meaning that almost no free radicals are produced. Everybody heard about free radicals? Yeah, it's pretty much, think about it as the exhaust. Whenever we burn off energy, exhaust just like when your car. Well, you run on glucose, the exhaust coming out of your car, you switch it to ketones and nothing will come out pretty much. And that exhaust is what ages and damages, and that's when we got to get the antioxidants in to combat that. So think of it as a very clean burning fuel. Okay, that's just one thing, but that's how you can, and that's measurable. Okay. Also, is that ketones and fat, and we didn't talk about this, but per weight you get twice as much energy as per weight of sugar. That's why you look up 1 gram of carbohydrate is about 4 calories, but 1 gram of fat or ketones is 9. So that's why you can have half the amount with the same amount of energy. But then you couple that with, well, what about the cleaner energy as well? So now you got, okay, I can eat half the amount of weight. It doesn't produce any exhaust. That's probably a good thing. So can you see how it's more than one thing that changes probably? And the fatty acids do the same. They're very clean burning as well, as far as I know. So basically, in a nutshell, when you fast and enter ketosis, your body cleans out the rubbish and starts running on clean, sustainable energy. Okay. That's it. You can sort of think of it that way. So the main aim with fasting is to get our body into a state of lipolysis, adipose tissue breakdown. Adipose tissue is just another fancy word for our fat tissue. And thereby automatically enter into ketosis once your glycogen starts to run low. That sort of sums it up what we're trying to do with fasting in this context. And then you can sort of refer back to all the pictures and what we talked about to understand it. Now measuring ketones, like I've done here today, gives us an idea how well we're breaking down fat tissue and converting it to energy. Because if you're fasting and ketones in your blood, you're breaking it down. If you're still feeling crappy, you're probably just not using them yet, but once you start, you use them as energy. Measuring blood sugar and ketones simultaneously lets us know the correlation between the two. Okay, if you sort of want to geek out a little bit, it's just nice to know that it, as I said earlier today, getting a bit off subject again, but I would use it as I exercised and I showed you my numbers there, that they were quite back to normal 2 hours after exercise. But if they had stayed up, knowing what we know about the body will keep spitting out glucose if it's in stress, I then use it as a stress indicator. So if your glucose is up, even though you might be fasting or something, and your ketose goes down, you go, well, maybe I got a bit stressed and that mechanism kicked in.
Mm-hmm.
And then simultaneously, and it makes sense, and then my ketone production went down. Okay, so the two worst things you can do while fasting is to exercise more than easy walking, or drink any sort of carbohydrate like vegetables or fruit juice. Both will raise blood sugar, either directly by consuming the carbohydrate, that makes sense, or via gluconeogenesis, the body will make sugar. And that mechanism could also be by exercise triggering our stress response. And you can go back and read that, you can see how that triggers that release of glycogen.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's sort of a bit the opposite. We're told to exercise to burn fat, aren't we? But it's perceived as a stress, that inherent response kicks in, and it'll stop it.
The woman who fasted on Catalyst, she didn't measure her glucose and ketone levels, did she? But she went for that run and said she felt really terrible, that mountain hike.
Yeah, she hiked, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes, and
But
she
see,
said she shouldn't have.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, she was saying that
She
wasn't
felt
it.
really weak in her legs, didn't she?
But she
And
wouldn't
see,
have
that
even
was
been
like so
fat
much
adapted.
good information taken so out of context.
Yeah. But
It just confuses people, which is probably what they're trying to do.
Mm.
But see, the thing is, like, you're fasting, right? It is a stress on the body already, but what we're trying to do with fast, think about what you're trying to do, is that
Well, she was very positive. Like, she put a positive slant on,
Yeah.
didn't she? It wasn't that she was saying, she said she'd do it again.
But she
Yeah.
wasn't fat adapted or anything, was she?
no, there's just so
That's
many
the whole
things
point.
that
It was-
could be.
yeah, she-
It was so good, but it's just a
Yeah.
shame that they just anyway.
Mm.
But see, the reason, if we come back to this, that we don't want to exercise hard or even get stressed because we don't want those stress responses. Because you're fasting already is a stress, right? So they are going to kick in a bit. So you don't want to amplify that. But if you're mimicking, that's a word anyway. But you're trying to just you're trying to switch. You do it in the context of switching on your fat metabolism, which is what that stress will do. But if you then increase your energy demand, like by exercising hard, well, when would you do that in nature? You'd do it if you were seriously starving. You wouldn't go and I'm going to go do some sprints back 1,000 years ago, would you?
No.
Because I want to keep fit. You would do it if somebody was chasing you. So then all those things to keep you alive is going to kick in. All that release, glycogen, breakdown, muscle, whatever. We're just trying to tap into one part of that survival mechanism. Okay, we're going to lie here and we're going to be perfectly fine because we've got that stress response at a low level by fasting and not being stressed out by anything. We'll just burn fat. That's basically what happened. If you throw a bit of carbohydrate, like you had the fruit juice fast, pretty much stupid thing I ever heard of. So they're not getting enough calories, right? they might only be getting say 500 calories, which is fasting, but it's all carbohydrate. So what do? You kick in, that goes up, your fat burning stops,
Horrible.
and you're fasting. So now you're really screwed. You've got this insulin hanging around your bloodstream. You're not pumping, you're fasting. So what are you going to break down, do you think? Muscle tissue. You know, they just don't understand. If juice fast, are you kidding me? Like, don't you? Anyway. So yeah, don't get stressed, and certainly don't exercise more than you feel like. You can actually, even when you do get into ketosis, like when I fasted for 10 days, I wrote about this on my blog. But you got to understand, I've been doing this for a long time, even at that point in time. So as you get into this, you'll get better and you can do those things. But we're just trying to break into it. So that's why you don't want to, just don't get stressed if you're trying to fast. The best is really if you can just, because your body will go into repair mode, is another good thing. But if you can do easy walking without, you just want to try and just stay calm, basically.
Have a day off.
Yeah. But if you feel fine, you want to do gardening, do it. Just don't push yourself so where you're like, oh, I haven't got the energy, but I've got to do this. You're probably going to just reverse it, fast another time, just keep eating. Yeah? Understand the mechanism there?
Yeah.
And again, you can refer back to this and just... So, this is how I would go about fasting. If you sort of want an outline, you can sort of call it phase 1 to 6. But again, we'll keep it simple, right? So you have dinner, then you skip breakfast, then you eat lunch. You've just done a 17-hour fast. That's a good start. That's pretty much what I do now. I live in phase 1, pretty much. I don't really eat anything in between. And then even from lunch till dinner, you got another 7-hour fast. Okay? But that's where I live now, but that'd be a good starting point. But for start, you could have, like I said, we go back, skip breakfast and have a fat drink. And especially with MCT, I reckon you'll be absolutely fine.
So your fat drink isn't like having food, is that what you're saying?
Well, there's still calories, but it's just pure fat. So we're not, see what we want to do, basically what we're trying to do is get that insulin back down. So you'll start releasing fat.
So hold on, when you say skip breakfast, you could put a bracket in that said have a fat drink.
Yeah, but this is like fasting. Back there we talk about the diet. No matter what, I would just start doing that. That would be a suggestion. You could also just start eating breakfast like that. Look, as I said, the real food and the low carb high fat will get you there. If you do want to really kickstart it, do this.
So kickstarting it means that phase 1, in that time frame, you could still have a fat drink.
Well, this is fasting.
Or it should be just water.
You could. I
Should
mean,
be a
fasting
water
is
fast?
not eating, right?
Yes.
So
But you're having the butter in there. Would that be included? That's
so it's not really. I would fast is not eating. So this is just in the context of fasting. The other one I covered before was more or less. This is how I would, when you start eating normally, I will still just have fat in that first part of the day.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is like, if you want to have a crack at this, you need to understand what ketosis is, and this is how to do it. That's more or less what it is.
So you
But just
during your fast, you're only having water. You're not having bulletproof coffee or.
Well, I would
coffee
still have
with
coffee,
cream.
and what I did when I fast, I never give up coffee and cream.
Okay.
So
So you could always have your.
And honestly, if you want to say where it says skip breakfast, if you want to replace that with a fat drink, because it'll work too. It's just the fasting is, I keep saying, it's the quickest.
Not have a meal.
And I keep saying brutal just to prepare you a little bit, even though it's probably going to be fine. But if I say brutal, it's going to be fine, you'll be fine. Does that make sense? So yeah, this is like a fasting protocol. If you wanted to say, well, how do I go about starting it? Well, just do it this way.
And would you do it in like phase 1 is day 1, phase 2 is day?
No,
like,
I was
can't be
saying
day 1, 2,
you
because
could-
they're 48 and 30. Yeah, sorry.
You
Dumb
could
question.
sort of, what do you call ebb and flow between
Yeah,
these? Okay, today I'm going to do phase 1.
Yeah.
And I might even do that for the week. Because I said, this is where I live now. This is normal for me.
It's me too.
And that's, sort of, so that becomes normal once you start. See, this is the thing, it's only going to, the discipline is only going to be for a while. Now that while is a pretty broad spectrum.
But sorry to jump in, Monica, you're not eating dinner though, so you're only having that one
Well, I'm
meal.
having a long period of time without any food. So from 3 o'clock till 9 o'clock the next day, sometimes 10.
Yeah.
So I finish usually. I'm not paranoid about it, but my general day is my last meal is around 3, and I don't eat till after 9 the next day.
So do you graze through those hours, or
That's
do you
a-
have
but it-
set meals?
No, that's at night time, and so it's from 3 p.m. one day
Yeah.
until 9 a.m. the next morning. So I'm asleep,
Yes.
and I get up and do some
Yeah.
things. Then my eating time is a meal, and
what
at about
time?
it might be 9 or 10. It
Oh,
could be
early,
11 or
yeah.
12, depending on my work schedule. And I try to have my last one by 3, but I'm not eating in between. The only thing I'd have in between would be the bulletproof coffee.
Okay, so
By
that's
the
it.
coffee.
So you
I
have.
don't
you're
have
not-
any other food
you
in
have
between.
set meals.
And I
That's-
never want it, and sometimes I only want one meal.
Yeah.
Mm.
Right.
In the morning when you get up, would you have a coffee
Yes,
with cream?
just with just butter.
Yeah, just try not to
Just
be
about
too
a coffee.
religious about it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have a little bit for the taste, it's not like
Mm.
it's not like a. Okay, put it this way: you have that drop of carbohydrate, that'll probably fuck you up, to be honest,
Mm.
right? Because it'll trigger the hormonal insulin response.
Yeah.
Having a drop of fat won't do anything
Yeah.
hormonally, which is what we're interested in. It's just gonna, obviously, you're gonna burn that before you burn your own body fat.
Because it's
Alright.
calories.
But it'll still get you there. See, the thing about this, it's sort of, this is why I keep saying don't make it too hard, because once you start releasing fat, you're not going to be hungry because you're getting supplied by your own supply.
Mm.
So it's going to come, or you're going to sort of automatically go from
Yeah.
this to this, right? But initially it is going to take a bit of discipline, because once you go low carb or even fast, your body's going to scream out for fuel, because that's what it's used to. It's going to scream out for what it's used to. So that's the only place you're going to require a bit of discipline.
What about miso soup? Would you consider that a food?
I don't know. I don't really know what it's.
It's from,
Maybe it's
from
pretty,
soy. I
yeah.
wouldn't touch anything to do with soy.
Yeah, I mean,
In my
I'm
life,
sort of looking
no
the same
way.
boat with that. But yeah, if it's no caloric like bone broth, a lot of people fast on bone broth, which is.
yeah.
But then again, I heard bone broth is more protein, but some of them do it for the minerals. I've never done it again.
You can
wanna
raise
do
your
bone
glucose.
broth?
Yeah, it can raise your glucose.
Yeah.
with
The bone broth?
Yeah.
That's why if you
Okay.
fast
Mm.
and we're going to get to how you test your blood sugar, and you can see that your blood sugar jumps up from it, then okay, well then there's maybe something going on.
Mm.
I would just have your coffee, tea, and then just don't eat,
Mm.
and then make it simple. Do this. Don't eat breakfast. Eat lunch. Done. 17 hours.
Mm.
Okay. Now you started making some inroad into your metabolism. You've gone on to low carbohydrate diet. You're getting there. Before you know it, you'll be here. Before you know it.
Yeah.
Because I started out having my normal last meal of the day at around 6 o'clock, like I normally would, and then because I start with a bulletproof coffee the next morning, that gave me energy, and I didn't feel hungry. And when I normally would have had breakfast, I didn't actually need to eat till say 10 or about 11 o'clock. So I probably was doing a fast. I didn't even realise I was. And about 11 o'clock, but I always ate when I was hungry, but it was always low carb, high fat.
Yeah. But that's the thing.
and
Now you're
gradually,
starting
yeah.
to really just feed your. See how we talk about fat metabolism, a bit of a broad term, but there's fat metabolism breaking down your own fat. Okay, once you get that to the level of, say, I have to use myself as an example, then to run that metabolism, that needs then to be an outside source. But the losing weight is just running from the inside source. But it's the same sort of substrate for fuel. Does that make sense?
We've been having hot lemon and water, haven't we? And it's just like, and you don't feel hungry.
Yeah. And if see that's the best indicator. We can do, if we don't feel
Yeah.
hungry,
Yeah.
just let that happen. And you'll go into ketosis and all this. It's not. It's as simple as stop eating, and all this will happen. We talk about today.
We
This
used
just
to
gives you a
think
bit
if we
of that.
didn't eat, something might go wrong. We feel funny. Oh, therefore something must be breaking down.
But something is sort of going wrong, because
Yeah.
if you're trying to function and you stop eating, you go low carbohydrate, but you keep exercising hard, you don't understand that you're now switching metabolism. You're still putting this energy demand on your body. you're giving it no fuel, it can't switch on to the other fuel, well, you are screwed. But if you understand that, no, that takes time to go from one fuel source to the other one, and it's a hormonal process, all these variables, okay, now we can do it.
So if you respond like that to not eating, fasting, and then you have an extreme response like Anna does or my daughter does, you can't just not eat. You've got to do something. So would you then be better to have like another fat drink or?
I would go. This is where MCT would shine, in my opinion. Look, you can have disorders and all this, but if say your daughter's trying to and not exercise at the same time, that's disaster. It won't work. That's why I put that up there. The two worst things you can do. You can't ask your body to switch metabolism from one substrate to another, and at the same time demand that it puts out the same output. It's unfair, right? You need to let it do one, and then you come back and do the other. You need to you're restructuring everything.
So Olaf, if I'm doing that normal eat by 3, and I feel quite comfortable with all of that, but I can't have my 9 o'clock sort of meal, but I've had a bulletproof coffee, and I teach a yoga class, and I'm physically moving. I'm really inadvertently doing a fast. So I'm not deliberately doing it. It's just how I eat now. It's not necessarily a good thing that I haven't.
Just
that I'm
run
actually
that
I've got that 17-hour fast. And I can't have my normal eating time because I'm teaching a class between 10 and 11:30, and I might be physically moving. I should not physically move much in that class myself. Is that what we're saying, or it doesn't? It really means a lot of, and I feel fine. I don't feel like I come home and I'm happy to just then have my meal. I'm not feeling like, oh, I can't manage.
Okay, here's what I think. Let's take your daughter as an example. To you, you've been doing this for quite a while. You're probably able to do that quite fine, but she wouldn't at this stage. So it depends on where you're at, and say take it to me. Like, look, it's probably ideal for me to have eaten with you guys, even for my. But because I got this thing just switched on back and forth between, the outside source, the inside source, and my energy just doesn't. See, my blood sugar just doesn't miss a beat. Doesn't mean it's not optimal for me to have eaten back then. It just means I can do it. And I actually don't think it's detrimental. I think it's good. But you don't want to prolong that. But so it depends on where you're at and how efficient. I'd say if you can do it, you're probably okay. But if you start to get if you're trying to push it, and you are running ketones, but the more you push it, then your energy starts to wane. It means, well, you're not quite good enough at oxidizing ketones and fatty acids at that level of effort yet. Whereas you're pretty good.
Yes.
And your daughter wouldn't be able to yet, but we can just, and then you can put me up here maybe. But we can all get to that.
So I'm not doing damage to the I feel like there wouldn't be. It would me not feeling fine with doing that would be an indicator that might be drawing on glucogen from the muscles.
I think that's if you're still sort of performing. You're going to have a hard time performing well.
Okay.
Because I think still breaking down muscle tissue and all that to that extent, it's such an extreme state, your body will only do it under that extreme circumstance. But let's just try to just put that in perspective. So let's say what you're doing, you're fasting, but you don't want to give up your exercise. You are going to probably be able to do it, but you're probably going to feel miserable because you haven't really tapped into a survival mechanism. And if you've started breaking down your muscle tissue, and once you stop that activity and your body realizes you're out of danger, you're not going to feel too damn hot.
Okay.
So I think really
she'll start shaking.
And
she'll go very cold and clammy, then she'll start vomiting.
And that's
there's
because
nothing to vomit.
And her fat metabolism, my guess would be, is just she's got that. She can't switch. And then you put the demand on, and you also. But no, then you need to. If you can do that, then keep eating, obviously, because it is a danger. If you're so messed up in your
Yeah.
insulin and hormones and you put that demand on
Mm.
and you put it on hard enough,
Yeah.
whatever that is, I don't think we don't do so this is why I think it's an extreme
Some
case.
people.
What I'm talking about here is actually you can say a milder. This will happen to a milder extent
Mm.
with exercise. You will just
But if she obviously needs to do something to intervene, but the worst thing would be for her to then eat carbohydrate.
because she'll never switch on this.
Yeah, she'd be better just to stop and have some fat.
Yeah, you need to
Yeah.
stop and give your body time to adapt to
Yeah,
fat.
yeah.
That's what I'm getting at.
Mm.
Don't try to exercise. We're going to get to exercise.
Mm.
So does that make? But you can see how, and you can just go back and read about the stress response. What I'm talking about now. I know we're sort of going back and forth, but it's all
It is
a
clearing
picture
some
coming
things
together.
out,
Yeah.
Mm.
But once you understand it, you're pretty
Mm.
solid. You know.
Mm.